Thank you so much, Professor, to come from your busy schedule to talk to the students.
Thank you, Professor Chakravarti. So what I thought was like I will just give you a quick and a brief introduction about Center for Healthcare Entrepreneurship. So Center for Healthcare Entrepreneurship was established in 2016 by two alums from IIT Bombay. So from 1975 batch IIT Bombay alums Mashru and Avi. The main vision was to create a platform for bringing engineers, scientists, clinicians, designers, business administrators on a single platform towards healthcare innovations. So, and what we expected out of the center was like healthcare entrepreneurs, which are the trained human resources, medical innovations in terms of technologies, technology transfers, IP, startups, and startup companies, and some of the medical devices and products that we that are coming out. So these were the main expected outcomes from the center. So we, in the beginning itself, we looked at like, when we started looking at healthcare, finally it is touching the lives of millions that we really want to do. But at the same time, we realized that our strength is mainly the engineering aspect or the technology aspect of it. So we specifically made it a point that, we would look at the needs from the clinics or hospitals, which could be addressed by the technology interventions. So that was one of the main filter points that we put on looking at problems and needs from the clinics. From the CfHE, we have two programs. One is a fellowship program, which is a one-year fellowship in healthcare entrepreneurship, which is a supported program with a 60K per month fellowship. And we also have an incubation program where, mostly the fellows who are graduating from the fellowship program with a successful prototype and idea and a business plan get incubated from the center with a seed grant of 25 lakhs. So these are the two modes of operation. I will talk a little bit more detail into this. So apart from, to facilitate these activities, so we have a good pool of faculty mentors, and we have a basic minimum rapid prototyping and fab facility. Then some of these medical device pre-compliance testing facilities, medical electronics and embedded systems lab, and wet labs. This is like a quick resource for the incubators and the fellows at CfHE, so that their product design and iteration moves very fast. We looked at how we can attract people to work with CfHE. So as I mentioned before, one is a fellowship in healthcare entrepreneurship. So then we also have this incubation from the fellowship program, where successful fellows who start teams and companies get incubated in the CfHE with a startup grant. And we also follow something called a hub and spoke approach, where those who are interested in an entrepreneurship mode from engineering colleges would be like, so we sort of do an online program where like we ignite their fire for entrepreneurship, and they can join the program as soon as they graduate. So it is sort of like a 3-year engagement for the interested students from local engineering college. Towards the end of their program, either it could be aligned with their BTech project or any of their startup idea which they want to work on. But the moment they graduate, they could really join the immersion program. So in addition to that, we also have, just like Surya has mentioned, the incubation from our own faculty, a pre-incubation phase for our own faculty. And also one of the unique programs that we are looking at is also like any student entrepreneur who want to really work on something which is healthcare related. So a student and faculty can join, or a team of students, mostly the final year PhD students or MDiS or MTech students, can walk into the center with an idea which would definitely be evaluated and vetted against the government. And then they can be incubated with the center. So apart from that, there has also been call from industry, various medical device industries, to sort of bring small groups into some of the areas based on their needs. So it is sort of like an outsourced team from the industry who could work on a problem. And if many of the times the industry may not be really interested in spending a long time in a new problem. So this mentoring phase happens at CfHE, and successful they go back to the parent industry. So as a startup or a technology idea or as a team. And also there were also needs coming from industry, like for example MedPlus, who want to really develop over-the-counter products which are already existing. Most of them would be like sort of re-engineering or some of those indigenous technologies which can be made in the country itself. So these are the various ways in which at the moment CfHE is operating. This is sort of like a broad overview of how the fellowship program goes. So in the first phase, when we have the fellows into the center, so we open up a national level call for applications, which is all the applications go through like a 3 round of interviews where we have multiple levels of expert panels and hackathons. And then end of the interviews, we have a pool of fellows who are selected for the fellowship program. So the first process after the selection is to bring all of them from on a single or a level platform. This is because the fellows are coming from various backgrounds from engineering. So we are open for anybody with an undergraduate degree with a fire for entrepreneurship. So basically we have clinicians, a lot of clinicians working with us. We have designers, engineers from all streams, and management graduate as well. So the first part of the program, we bring everybody to a level platform where all of them go through a course of tight pack course on anatomy and physiology. A bunch of prototyping courses for making them comfortable with CAD and CAM. Then we have a set of design thinking sessions, and then a biodesign thinking process, mostly concentrating on innovation medical devices. So apart from that, we also have a couple of mentoring sessions on business and entrepreneurship. Some of the medical device regulatory aspects come here, and overall philosophy of the startup and entrepreneurship comes in this first phase of the program. And then they move to what we call as a clinical immersion. So in the clinical immersion, all these fellows are shadowing clinicians, physiotherapists, nurses, and whatever that happens in the clinic, with a focus on identifying or observing what are the processes that are happening there, identifying the needs from the clinic. And all of these, once observations come to the problem statements and need statements, we go through a rigorous filtering and ranking process. Where we look at who are the stakeholders involved, if the problem is solved, what is the competition landscape, what is the impact and the market analysis, etc. So, and then we rank the needs, rank the unmet needs based on the scoring patterns. And finally, end of 6 months, we form teams among the fellows, and each of the fellows would pick up their top need based on their passion as well as the other analysis. And they start working on their unmet need as a team. So this is where actually the team formation for the company happens. And the second phase of it, third phase of it, essentially is an ideation brainstorming session, mentoring and business immersion. And then they move to what we call as a prototyping sessions. We also have a basket of courses during this time on IPs, regulatory devices, how to do an entrepreneurship, how to do a business plan, and similar things. And the end of this last phase culminates with a working prototype of their idea and a business pitch. So all the teams pitch to a jury, which is constituted by the center externally from various backgrounds, and those who are successful in their pitch would come back to the center as incubators. So this is the journey for the one-year fellowship program. With this, I would start sort of like, have a quick review of one particular startup, Be Able Health. So this was one of the companies in our first batch in 2016. So Be Able actually is a neuro rehab device for the upper arm rehabilitation for people who have suffered from paralysis or stroke and similar things. So if you look at the evolution, so basically what they looked at is the problem is one of the main problems in the stroke. The burden of stroke patients in the country is huge. And the gap they realized is that the number of physiotherapists is very low. The time that the patients spend with physiotherapists is very low. And the number of rehab centers or the number of neuro rehabs, rehabilitation specialists are also extremely low. So basically, they looked at problems something like the travel burden, where the disabled patient has to go travel to the physiotherapist for physiotherapy, which was one of the main concerns. Then most of these patients who have disability, they will be strongly dependent on somebody, and this adds to their depression and lack of motivation. So currently, what is practiced is like there is a lot of one-to-one interactions with the physiotherapist, and physiotherapist, in fact, will be able to spend a very little amount of time with the patient. So most of these techniques lack an assessment of the progress. There is no monitoring of adherence to therapy. There is no documentation or quantitative assessment of progress. And also, most of the techniques doesn't leverage on how the brain evolved or the plasticity of the brain in addressing conditions like stroke. So you can see one of these rehabs, what we saw in the clinic. So it's a very painful process and laborious for both the patient as well as the clinician. So all of you might have seen videos like this where the patient has to spend patiently a lot of time with the physiotherapist in doing even small steps. So, and be able came out of this observations actually. So it's an interactive platform with a VR enabled platform with lot of games on it, so that the patient can be really performing engaging exercises. And most of these physiotherapies are really quantitative in nature. So they could really get the distance moved by the patient, or the level of exertion in a very quantitative way. And everything is monitored on the cloud. So the entire data goes to the cloud, so that the physician or the physiotherapist can monitor the progress and also set the goals, like the difficulty levels of the games. Virtual games can be set by the physiotherapist in an interactive way. So now just going back, how much time it took for an idea like this to evolve. In fact, Beable was registered as a company after the fellowship in 2017 August, and it took almost 4 years to see what it is currently. So this was sort of the initial sketches and frames from they evolved. So actually, I took this example deliberately because there's a lot of design concepts that is involved in the evolution of this process. You can see the first design. Maybe even the founder of the company might have forgotten this design. So this was one of the first designs prototyped in the lab during the fellowship program, and from where it took a very long way of 4 years to see what it is currently now. So this was the second prototype, probably, which he was using it for the last stage of the fellowship, and from where we see the product almost like So I believe some of these are really intuitive to find out like how much of the design concepts have gone into it. So in fact, one of the first few trials to look at the usability of the device. So this was a stroke patient with disability on the right side. So as you can see, things are not that simple when it comes to patient who is already disabled, and you can see the people who are aiding and supporting the disabled side and how her hand was tied onto the handle. So this was at the stage where one of your own alums or seniors, Srihari, who joined the team. Srihari also joined Habib as co-founder of the company in 2018 or 19, and then they sort of started working on the clinical trials. This was actually the first clinical trial of the device. So behavioral has evolved quite a lot in the last year, especially during the lockdown time. They worked a lot on their VR games, and in fact, games something like kneading a roti or catching a mosquito became part of the game. Virtual games, which became more and more interactive and culturally attractive for people also to look at. So these are some of those recent activities which they used for development of the device. So I'm just wrapping up this discussion here. Basically, all I wanted to say is that 4 years for a medical device startup to enter the market is something which is quite successful. Even if you look at the average incubation duration in the country is close to 8 to 10 years for a medical device startup doing proper clinical trials and entering the market in this space. So that is where I want to project the real motivation and dedication from the co-founders who really wanted to take this to the clinics. So at present, I think as of now, what I see is that they have sold 20 devices to clinics and to patients, and they are still working on another 30 more devices in the current order. So basically, this is the process we followed: rigorous clinical immersions, interactions with industry and stakeholders. So there were a lot of mentoring even from the Hyderabad ecosystem, from people even from other disciplines like even the IT or the software industry who could really be successful in these type of journeys. There were a lot of mentorings involved, and there was also a short package which enabled them to file their IPs and regulatory matters properly, and drafting a good business plan at the end of the journey. So at present, the CfHE has about 9 startups and 8 more startups who are registering at the end of this year, this fellowship, which is happening in a month. And we have currently 21 fellows, and we have completed 21 fellows who have been trained from CfHE. The current batch has 14 fellows, which is going to complete the next year, and that's where we are. And thank you.